So sometimes you need to do something a little different or a little fancy with your quotes. We're going to focus on today, how do you cut things out of a quote, or how do you show that you have modified a quote? Sometimes a quote is just too long. There may be information that you want at the beginning and end, but you don't need the middle. Or you only need the beginning or the end of a sentence, but not the rest. When that happens, you need to cut the extra and indicate the change with an ellipsis. So an ellipsis is the three little periods that you see in printing. Usually it's a period with a space, period with a space, period with a space. If you are adding something, then you use a bracket. A bracket is the straight-backed version of a parenthesis. So let's look at this in context. In this case, we have a section from a Forbes magazine article by Alice Walton about the effect of social media on mental health. But this quote is far too long. It's too redundant and frankly unnecessary. We really only need a few words. So we cut what we don't need and replace it with an ellipsis. Swansea University researcher Phil Reed, so we pull that from the middle of the quote, found that people experience the psychological symptoms of withdrawal, ellipsis, such as feelings of anxiety, ellipsis, and that these psychological effects are accompanied by actual physiological changes. In this case, we're cutting a lot. We're cutting from symptoms of withdrawal to feelings of anxiety, and then again to these psychological events. However, because we cut so much out, we needed to add in a few transition words for the grammar of the new sentence to make sense. In this case, we've added such as and the conjunction and in order for our new abbreviated quotation to make sense. So as we just indicated, there are times when you're going to have to modify a quotation. There's three basic reasons to modify a quotation. First, if there are pronouns in the quotation which don't make sense, you'll replace them with the actual names in brackets. If you need to emphasize something different, the emphasis gets indicated with either the words printed emphasis, if the emphasis was printed in the original text, or emphasis added, if you are the one adding the emphasis. The third reason is sometimes people don't speak with the best grammar. And if they don't, then you have to add the word sick, S-I-C, in brackets afterwards to indicate that that bad grammar is not your fault. So let's look at this in context. Sometimes quotations will use personal pronouns that, taken out of context of the full original source, make the quote unintelligible or incorrect. So our original source text is an NPR article titled "High School Vape Culture Can Be Almost as Hard to Shake as Addiction, Teens Say," by correspondent Ellie Yu. The original quote reads, "I just sort of remember using it a bunch of times, like in a row," he says, "and there's this huge buzz sensation like head rush, and I just didn't really stop." In this context, it makes it seem like the author, Ellie Yu, is the one who is vaping, when in reality, she is quoting the teenager Will. So we would modify this to take out the pronoun I and put in the teenager's name. So the new quote would read, "Will just sort of remembers using it a bunch of times, like in a row, and there's this huge buzz sensation like head rush, and he just didn't really stop." That way we're clarifying that no, the correspondent, Ellie Yu, is not the one vaping. Her teenage interviewee is. So our second reason is for emphasis. This is still from that same NPR article. Other times, the original text will be printed with a specific emphasis. The text would be bolded or underlined or italicized. In those cases, you would add the words printed emphasis in brackets. But sometimes you want to emphasize a specific part of the quote. In that case, you need to add emphasis added in brackets to show that you are drawing attention to a specific part of the quotation. In this case, we are adding emphasis just to show how fast the vaping epidemic escalated by bolding and underlining the words 0 to 60, then adding emphasis added in brackets afterwards. Lastly, if the original text is ungrammatical, you need to indicate that so that readers don't think that you are the one that messed up. If the original text is not grammatically correct, you add the word sick, SIC in brackets after the ungrammatical part. This is a Latin abbreviation for just as, meaning this is the text just as it was written. So in this case, we need to indicate that in the original text, the word you was written as ye. So we add sic in brackets after the ungrammatical ye to show that this isn't a typo. Now you should be able to cut and modify texts with the best of them. Thanks for listening.